And all right, good morning, everyone. I will call this meeting to order. This is the Olympic Region Clean Air Agency Finance Committee meeting. Today is April 8th, and we are getting started here at 8:31. I hope everyone had a chance to review the materials. I kind of harassed everybody, making sure people saw it, so I hope everyone had a chance to review the draft budget for 27 especially. So we just need to get started with the approval of the agenda. I wanted to highlight for folks who might, I don't know, consider this, but the draft budget is currently under new business. And this is the 27 draft budget. It's new to me because it's an action item this time, where last time we were just kind of reviewing the item informationally. So I'm okay with leaving the draft budget under new business, but I thought I would just highlight for some who might think it should go under unfinished business, since we've talked about it before. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there and ask if there are any amendments to the agenda, or if we have a motion to approve as is.
I would move to approve the agenda as is.
All right. You have a second?
Second.
All right, and all in favor, say aye.
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 All right, beautiful, unanimous. So the next item is approval of the meeting minutes from March 11th.
Madam Chair, I move for the approval of the meeting minutes of March 11th as presented.
Second.
Perfect, motion and second, any discussion? All in favor?
We're going out tomorrow. Yeah,
Aye.
that's about it.
Perfect.
Damn, Al things looking at me again.
Yeah, I know,
I don't like that thing.
How's a way of doing that?
yeah.
It does.
All right, so that takes us to unfinished business, and we will do a follow-up on the March Finance Committee discussion. And I'll turn this over to the staff.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. Before jumping into this discussion, just wanted to ask a process question. So we got the packet emailed out on Thursday, but after getting it emailed out, we did make a couple minor changes to the materials. Emily asked for some figure legends to be put in in some of the charts in the presentation. And then we also added the history of penalty revenue for the past number of years into the budget. I did not send out an email letting you know about those updates, and I was just wondering, in the future, if we do have updates after the initial email, would you like to be notified, or is it just something that we can talk about?
Yeah.
You'd like to be notified? Okay.
Well, I'd like to see it first.
Well, I mean, it will still be available, but it was just, should I make a note that, hey, we've updated it since you first got Debbie's?
Don't know to look at it unless you tell me.
Okay, well, you will get the email from Debbie, and so assuming that you'll be looking at it at that point, so the question is, would you like a notification about the information has changed or the information has been updated? And I'm hearing that.
For me, it depends on the scope of the change. If it's
Okay.
something like adding a legend to a chart, then no, I don't
Okay,
care.
that's kind of what,
Something that's a really crucial, hey, you know, this.
right.
Then I would want.
Who's going to bed?
I agree with that.
Yeah, I
I
know,
think
I'm
it's
trying to
somebody
figure that out.
I think it's somebody in Greg's background.
All right.
Okay, so, yeah, so just wanted, all right, so thanks for that clarification on that. Then, before handing over to Tyson, let me just say that, again, what Tyson prepared is information, in response to the conversation that we had in March. We heard from you, that you would like a 5-year look back at our fund balance, for what's been the history of, have we been drawing money out of the fund balance? We've been adding money to the fund balance. And also for a 3 to 5 year look forward about our fund balance, given some assumptions, and then also ask for information about the history of agency FTEs over the years and how that might or might not have changed. So those things are all in the slides that Tyson's about ready to walk us through. You also asked for some information about the work that ORCAA does that's required versus discretionary. And that's a longer discussion, and that's going to be kind of a program by program. So I'm proposing that in the coming months, once we finish with the regional focus, that we start programmatic focus. And that at each ORCAA board meeting or something near, approximately every meeting, we look at and just do a deep dive into our different programs, what it is, why do we do it? Is it legislatively, statutorily required? How do we do it? How does ORCAA staff implement it? How does it further our mission? And then how do we pay for it? Just to give you all sort of that information on each of our programs. So I think that's how I would propose to answer that question. So with that, I think I'll just hand it off to Tyson to take us through to his slides.
Dan, do I have sharing privileges?
Yes.
Great. So bear with me here. I'm going to be sharing from my computer.
Can I test my audio to see if it's better? I thought I was on my AirPods. Sorry, it is noisy. Sorry about that. I'm better. Okay, good.
Yep.
It's gotta be the blue jacket. What the hell?
I've never seen one before.
I know, it always does that to me when I come in here. I don't want to be meetings anymore. I'm the one guy that don't want to see himself.
Okay, I have to reorient my Zoom. There we go. Excellent. Okay, so the goal of this presentation is to answer some questions posed by members of the Finance Committee during our March meeting. My hope is this information will provide more context for future discussions concerning budgets and ORCAA's financial performance. Just kind of a lag. During this presentation, we will be covering year-end performance from fiscal year 2020 to 2025. We'll be touching on the FY 2025 deficit. We'll be looking at variances between actual and budgeted figures, estimated projections, and a look forward. So to start, I think we should give some historical context regarding ORCAA's financial performance. Represented in the table on top is the ending net position for each fiscal year from FY 20 to FY 25. Fiscal years 2020 through 2024 resulted in net gains in our fund balance, while 2025 resulted in the only decrease during the 6-year period. Also represented in the table below are the number of employees during each fiscal year. Over the course of 6 years, we have averaged 18 employees comprised of 17 full-time employees and 1 part-time employee. Presently, we have 18 employees and soon to be 1 part-time employee. Feel free to ask questions. There will be some time at the end for open questions, but feel free to interject, ask questions anytime. So
on the previous slide.
Yep.
You feel comfortable with where, it looks like we kind of have a fairly normal range of
We do.
FTEs. Feel like we're staffed correctly.
Yes,
I would just say that also from just a personality perspective, right? Personnel is policy, we've had changes to that, and so we don't need to make adjustments based on retirements and new staff that have different skills or anything. We feel pretty comfortable we're in the right bubble.
yeah, I believe so. As we've talked about, we are holding the financial specialist position vacant because of wanting to manage our funds conservatively. That, however, what that does is that does put a lot of work on Tyson, because he's not only essentially the agency's CFO, he wears an HR hat and manages agency policy and HR aspects, and he's also our building manager, managing our tenants and managing contractors and public works contracting and all of that. So that we created that financial specialist position a couple of years ago, recognizing that there was a lot on the financial services manager's plate, to create some additional redundancies. So we can, again, I think we can get by, but it's not an ideal situation.
Can you also disseminate a few of those things like property management stuff under somebody else?
Well, I mean, we're a small agency, we all wear a lot of hats, and so there's not necessarily capacity somewhere else. We've certainly talked about that, and within our admin team, there's been conversations about what else Tiffany can take on. So we certainly do talk about those kinds of things, but, yes.
Tyson, do you have an all-in cost, average that we have for employees?
I don't.
If, you don't have to have it today, but if you can put that together, just
Sure.
send it to me someday. This way, whenever we're talking numbers, I do things in blocks. This way I can just block them in my head and be close to accurate. It won't be perfect, but
Okay, any other questions? Okay, so this chart plots ORCAA's ending fund balance by month from July 2019 to June 2025. As you can see by the trend line, there's an upward trajectory in our overall fund balance. In general, our fund performance over the last 6 fiscal years has been strong. Approximately 2.8 million was added to our fund balance during the time period represented in the chart. Even when discounting the unusually high penalty payment received in March 2024, our fund balance still grew by $890,000. And that growth is represented by that orange line at the bottom. In the next slide, we'll take a closer look at the tail end of the chart.
Before you go on, Tyson, can I just say,
Sure.
these charts are so clear and communicate the ideas. So this is a great chart. I just want to give you a compliment. So
Excellent.
It is, and it's also useful to see that like that kind of cyclical up and down happens a lot. It
Yes.
looks like in ARCA's history.
Yeah, and actually, I'm going to be talking about that in the next slide a little bit. So this chart zooms in on the tail end of the previous chart. It also extends our historical look back to February 2026. The significance of this chart is it shows the point in which we received the abnormally large Crown Court concealed penalty payment to our most current month. During the course of these 24 months, the overall fund balance experienced a decrease of $132,000. However, this decrease does not necessarily predict a continued decrease to our overall fund balance, but more accurately represents the cyclical ups and downs of our fund performance. For example, during those 24 months, there were 5 months in which the fund balance exceeded the initial $4.83 million, as shown by the red dots in the chart. So again, this, as was mentioned, this is showing the cyclical nature of our fund performance. If you were to look at this snapshot, it looks like our fund balance is decreasing, but if you were to expand that over 6 years, we could see an upward trajectory. In this slide, we cover the fiscal year 2025 fund deficit. FY 25 was the only year which expenditures exceed revenue during the 6-year look back period. For that fiscal year, we ended with a deficit of $101,370,000. Although our actual revenue was $10,000 higher than projected, several unique situations contributed to the year-end deficit. During 2025, we had a senior manager who retired, which included cross-training and leave buyout. Those costs equated to approximately $54,000. We also had ongoing legal fees connected with a lengthy permit case. Those legal fees for that specific case for FY 25 were approximately $55,000. These costs, although uncommon, are still considered reasonable business costs. We would typically see in ORCAA's normal operations. And then lastly, in the table at the bottom, it highlights the difference between our projected ending deficit and our actual ending deficit for FY 25. And in the next slides, I'll be discussing the historical variances between the actual and budgeted numbers.
Can we talk about the legal fees for a second?
Sure.
How unusual is that number? What do we normally budget?
We usually, we've got, so we typically have a line item for our, so that's $55,000 in addition to the fees that.
Yes, so for FY 27, I believe, not counting the Grace Harbor case, I budgeted $35,000 in legal costs. So I think this particular case was above what we would normally see by that much, because it was tied to one specific case.
Right, the
which I
Grace
think
Harbor,
was-
the Friends of Grace Harbor case.
It's not unusual, it's not
That is very
Unusual.
unusual.
Well, it should be expected in our normal course of business, but it is an unusual fee in the amount of time and the amount of cost it incurred too, so.
And my only kind of, I don't know, do we see that, so. In a different hat that I wear as county commissioner, we have a lot of interactions with DNR, Department of Natural Resources. And what we're seeing is a really new legal strategy by activists
Mhm.
that is very litigious. They had 30-some lawsuits over the course of just this last year or two. Because people they have political opposition. And they're using they're funneling that political opposition into a legal strategy that costs our money. So are we worried about that happening in this? The permits that, this is normal course of business. We issue permits. So I just was curious.
If I can, I want to hit on that, because yes, and the reason why is a little different though. They're expanding their reach and what they're doing. Washington State, I've been in the risk pool for 14 years. The Washington State's different than the other states. There's only a couple that allow this, aside from us not having a cap. They allow for third party
Yep.
lawsuits. So now you have BlackRock and these other big investment companies that are using their investment monies to do these lawsuits. All they have to do is get $1 for the person to get all the legal fees back. So they're not out nothing, not to mention all the big things they're able to win. They're expanding what they're doing. It was counties and states, stuff like that. Now they're going, as you know, they're doing schools and stuff too. They're doing ports, and I would be shocked if they didn't come at us.
Yeah, it was, the idea of having a legal reserve fund was brought up, which I think is worth exploring.
Okay.
I'm not sure about including ongoing kind of normal operating costs related to legal cases, but more lawsuit rulings. Yeah, I'm definitely open to discussing possibly establishing reserve fund for legal.
I'm 100% in favor of that, keep it separate out our normal thing that we do in the budget, but I don't know, you can set up a legal thing for payout. How are we insured?
Yes, we are insured for those types of.
Through Endurance.
So we are endorsed, okay.
Yes.
The pros, so
Yes,
so
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that we work with them, on our cybersecurity incident. So and I did talk with them because I think Greg had some questions when the Friends of Grace Harbor case first came up, is do we have any legal, any way that we can tap into our insurance? But no, because it's a challenge to a permit. It's not wasn't a challenge to ORCAA's business or wasn't a claim that we'd done so it wasn't something that was covered. So other locals do have legal contingency fees. I had talked to Lynn about it in the past and whether it was worth setting something up. And she said, well, her position was that, well, it never really been an issue for ORCAA.
Right.
But I do think that it is something that we should talk about, maybe talk with Mr. Myers about it to kind of get his recommendation.
I absolutely think, I don't think that should be a question. We have the reserves that are going in other places, but taking that and putting at least 100K away as a simple backstop to make sure it doesn't affect our day-to-day operations, that affect our staff. And if it's not used, it doesn't hurt our cash flow. It just sits there.
And I just want to say really clearly, I want us to defend our permits.
Absolutely, yes, no,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, moving on. This table shows variances between budget and actual figures for fiscal years 2020 through 2025. The positive revenue variance indicates an underestimation of revenue receipts, and the negative expenditure variance indicates an overestimation of expenditures. Over the course of the last 6 years, a pattern of underestimating revenues and overestimating expenditure emerges. This underestimation and overestimation of activity directly contributes to recently large budgeted deficits we are seeing in our consolidated operating budgets.
Do that for just a few more seconds.
Yep. And so these are rolling up all of the subcategories that you see in our consolidated operating budget.
And grants are always going to be an issue. You can't control that as much as we would like to.
Right.
payroll is actually the other on expenditures, the other way around, so. Okay, thank you.
I like hearing your takeaway of that slide though. That's,
All right, so this table shows select sources of where variances are occurring between the budget figures. The reason why I selected these specific sources is that they show a repeated pattern of overestimation and underestimation and had significant variances between their actual and budgeted performance. A common theme among the selected revenue sources is they are more difficult to estimate when compared to grant or fixed fee revenue such as assessments or Title V revenue.
What is NSR?
New source review, that's essentially the permits that we issue.
Yeah, okay. And NOI?
Notice of intent. So that's, so that's kind of a streamlined NSR program that it's process that we have for primarily gas stations and others. It's just, it's an easier, more streamlined permitting process, but as you can see, it's a relatively small program. We don't issue many notice of intents.
NSR, NOI, asbestos, land clearing penalties, and investments are all sensitive to market and economic pressures and have a more direct link to market fluctuations as opposed to grants. There is a correlation in grants, but it's much more delayed. Wait, like a year or so. Because they are market driven, it is hard to exactly predict revenue receipts for a given year. On the expenditure side, like revenue increases to health insurance are also hard to predict due to the costs being guided by a market. The other two expenditure sources are capital expenditures. And we may plan for those expenses, but we may not necessarily expense those in a given year. So we plan for it, but we may not pay for those capital expenditures.
Yeah, and so some of that is a function of the fact that Tyson, that the financial services manager has a lot on his or her plate. And so we don't always have the capacity to do a big capital project. And so because the financial duties and HR duties take precedence typically over building.
Do we ever go after grants for capital?
To some extent, I mean, so yes, we looked at them for the EV charger. If we decide that we want to move forward putting solar on the building, we would certainly, I mean, Commerce has programs there. We looked at it, I think, for the energy efficiency, and we've looked at energy efficiency programs. So we do some looking at that.
Remember Johnson Controls, they'll come in and do a look at everything that you have that does power. They'll give you options where quite often it'll equal itself out. They'll guarantee it even. I've done it with my jail. I've done with some other stuff where we've had them come in. We've done the increases and we actually make money off it. I know it sounds like we make it through the savings. And I had them actually guarantee that the savings we covered now. It does it over 10 years, but don't care. Profit is a profit and better. Facilities is better facilities, so.
and often they'll identify grants.
Yes,
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, okay.
And just for context, counties have been required by the state to do those kind of energy audits on larger buildings. You're
Right.
probably below the square footage where that.
We are, I
would exist.
Yes, I think it's, I can't remember what the threshold is, but we're far below that. But I think, I remember talking with Lynn about it. I mean, I know that there was an energy audit of the building. I don't know if you remember. It's been a while ago. I think it was before my time, so it's certainly time to do it again.
But for Clallam County, at least, we had 2 buildings that were required to go through that energy audit, and at least 3 projects that had positive return on investment were identified. So, and in many cases, we identified grants that could even assist and increase that return.
Right.
Are you using Johnson?
I don't remember who we used. We did a RFP of some sort, and I don't know.
We already have a project kind of in the windows.
Yes.
Definitely a source of, we're leaking. Kind of
But when you do it all at one time, quite often they, like, as he said, they will
It's
actually
system,
go out
yeah.
and they'll find grants to do it.
Yeah.
It saved us a ton of money, for our jails and stuff like that, but like I said, it's actually been profitable.
Okay.
Now, they want to do, spend some time, they want to do it again, this time they want to charge us for it, but we just sent back, said, no, thank you, you'll do it for free like you did before, and we'll pick you because you're the best one, not because, you did it, because they want to charge us if we don't pick them, yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Lights is gonna be another one. Sure.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, we've replaced most of the lights in the building with LEDs.
Oh, good. Okay, so you already took that.
All right. So looking back over the course of 6 years, ORCAA in general has had strong growth performance. We've added 2.8 million to the fund balance and have posted 5 years of net gains. Also examining our actual to budget performance, we do see a pattern of underestimating revenue and overestimating expenditures. These variances are driven by unknown market factors we ultimately have no control over. In addition, this practice of underestimating revenue and overestimating expenditures, although not ideal, is a more conservative approach rather than overestimating revenue and increasing expenditures with those expectations. Next, we'll see a chart which shows a projected erosion of our fund balance. So this is kind of the look forward request. This chart is ORCAA's fund balance over time based on estimated budget projections. There are 2 scenarios represented. The blue scenario assumes a 50% reduction in federal core funds, and the orange scenario assumes federal core funds remains at the FY26 level. Both scenarios assume that the state core funding does remain constant.
At the current level, which is 35% of historical.
Yep. Each projection used very conservative estimates in which revenues remain mostly unchanged while expenditures increase at a fixed percentage year over year. This chart is meant to highlight a dire situation in which revenues increase only nominally while expenses keep rising. Using those assumptions, by fiscal year 2031, we would effectively be out of funds. Although unlikely, this chart shows how quickly a strong financial position can flip when expenditures are not aligned with revenues. Any questions?
Your revenue projections on this chart, are you taking CPI?
The revenue projections in the chart are very conservative. The only revenues I adjusted for were assessments and registrations at I think it was a 2.5% CPI year over year. All the other revenue remained constant. And then I increased non-payroll expenses and payroll expenses according to the CPI year over year. So
How has our historic actually matched with CPI? Our historic expenditure rate versus CPI. We have an average CPI over the last 5 years of 2.2
Right.
compared to our increases. You don't have to do it today, just if you don't mind.
Okay,
That'd
yeah.
be one you could send me information on later.
sure.
So we keep track of what we're.
I think it'll, yeah, probably be double CPI or so.
So based on historical performance, our current fund balance, I don't see a dire situation in need of immediate corrective action presently. However, there are several items which need to be addressed in future endeavors and projections. One of them is maintaining and achieving full cost recovery for all of our programs. Programs not achieving full cost recovery through fees are being subsidized by ORCAA's general funds. This directly impacts ORCAA's ability to tackle any customized work requests by the public or the board, and hampers our ability to fund capital reserve funds and funding, the replacement of roofs and databases. Also, a recent development which needs to be included in future projections is a potential percentage or complete loss of core funding. Core funding can be considered a part of our general fund since it covers unfunded work performed by other programs. Any reductions in core funding are currently being backfilled by our general fund sources, so assessments, largely.
Yeah.
Overall, I think we need to be planning conservatively and hoping for the best. We also need to be examining our revenue sources and working towards short-term and long-term cost recovery as an agency. We also need to be looking at costs and ways to reduce those costs through efficiencies. And lastly, we need to be keeping a close eye on our financial performance and updating the appropriate parties in a timely manner and adjusting accordingly.
Can I ask you to go back to that graph that you were showing with
Sure.
expended right there? I just want to point out the thing I've been talking about is actually this simple. Any type of adjustments we make in year one stretches that out 3 to 5 years. That's all I was trying to say for this whole time, and that's why I look at it the way I do, because I don't want to lever lay people off. I don't want to, it only starts by looking at that stuff in year one. You look at it in year 3, then you might gain another year or 2, but if you look at it year 1, you gain 3 to 5. So just want to put that out there.
So that's the end, opening it up for general discussion. Any questions, concerns from the committee?
Well done.
Thank you. Greg?
I was giving it a thumbs up. Really good stuff, Tyson. It really it's very helpful. No surprises there for me, but it's good to have data to support, the gut feeling that you have going through these processes since these charts began, most of them. So I really appreciate the work.
And as I mentioned at the start, again, so I think taking the board through a deep dive on our different programs, looking carefully at why do we do them? I mean, that will be important conversations as we look to, as we talked about, making sure that our fees are covered, to the extent to which we can cover the costs with fees is going to be really important to the overall.
Well, just remember, there's 2 ways to do this. It's not always to increase fees.
Yeah, well,
And I'm a lot more open to increasing fees when we're also doing the other.
Yeah.
I'm a lot less if we're only gonna just keep doing.
so part of those discussions will be looking at, again, at the required versus discretionary work and.
Sorry to do this, Dan. Could you share the Q3 financial statements? I realize I can't have 2 things open at once.
I can do that. I've got the PDF right here. Let's see.
So while he brings that up, my just general comment is the look back gives me a lot of reassurance. Because we're doing okay. And it's not a situation where we've seen an erosion of the fund balance.
Right.
The look forward doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, that's the bow wave concept that I talk
Yeah,
about.
100% agree.
And it's funny, when I say bow wave, everybody thinks that I'm talking about the tip of the wave. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about after you fall over the bow goes over that wave, the dip goes deeper.
Yeah.
That's what I worry about, not the big hits. It's what happens as we go down the other side, so.
Yeah, and a large percentage of our revenue is that market-driven revenue. And so building in assumptions around that, I didn't want to build a false narrative. And I wanted to look at what's the worst case scenario for us presently. And so that look forward is really a worst case scenario where we're not really seeing any revenue gain, but our expenses are just going up. So that's kind of why it looks like that.
So my other question about the look back is how typical is it for us to get a very large penalty?
ORCAA's only had a penalty that big one time.
Yeah.
Okay.
We will have occasionally something in the 50 to 70,000 range from an AOP on probably every 3 years, but you can't count on that.
Okay.
But yeah, that big one was far and away the only time. And then the other ones, like I said, about every 3 to 5 years, there's some facility that is bad and we might get a 30 to 50 to 70,000.
Well, and that's actually, this report talks about where we stand at the current fiscal year, and our penalties this year have been like 173% greater than we had budgeted. But I just wanted to do a quick time check. So we can go through this, I think, relatively quickly, but it's really important that we move the discussion about the draft budget forward before the end of the meeting.
I just wanted to put out that, yeah, that's the one-time thing, and it was huge. So I would like to see us separate it up, do one-time expenditures, we can keep track of it, keep the two separate, stuff like that. And we hope that it doesn't become our revenue generator.
Exactly.
in the long run, but our group has always been excellent for not doing that, and it gives me nothing to complain about. Because I really honestly always feel like they take care of, this one was the group that did this chose to do this.
Yeah.
This was not an accident. They knew what they were doing. They saved money by doing it in this manner. They called me up directly to say, don't be mad, Randy, and stuff like that. We did this to ourselves. We knew what we were doing, and you know, you don't need to protect us on this one. This is.
Yeah, usually if you're gonna get a big one, even the $50,000 ones that we occasionally get, those are the ones that are facility chosen to continue on knowing they have a problem. That's why it's big. The one-time things, they never get that big.
Dan, could you scroll down to the net surplus line? So net revenue,
Sorry.
I think, maybe next time I will just print these out for people.
We used to always have a little computer when we came in here.
Yeah, those are long, but I think
Those are gone?
those got surplused a while back.
So what line do you want, Tyson?
Sorry, keep scrolling down. It's below the expenditures and nets.
At the bottom of page 1,
Yeah,
bottom of that page.
and yeah, we were trying to avoid this by having me present, but I failed to realize I can't be presenting and reading off of my notes at the same time. So, these are included in the finance committee packet, documents. Thanks. Yeah.
Can you make it a little bit bigger now? Will it?
A little jumpy, but I'm
Oh,
trying.
I can see. She sees me squinting and looking forward.
So we'll just continue. So hopefully you have, the finance committee members have had a chance to look at our Q3 financial statements. It's okay, Dan. We will be presenting these are unreconciled statements, and that's because the timing of today's meeting and delivery date of the Thurston County Treasurer's Report. We had to present the unreconciled statements today. So next month, we will be presenting the reconciled statements. The reconciled statements are just including our investment or interest income, and then we had some additional revenue come in at the last minute. So year to date, as of the end of March, ORCAA ended with a net gain of $147,433 to our overall fund balance. When compared to Q3 FY25, our net gain is down by roughly $124,000. This decrease is attributable to an increase in expenditures during the same time period last fiscal year. And so those expenditures aren't really those kind of non-reoccurring costs that we have had this fiscal year.
Now, 2025 was 62%, and 68% of total expenditures. You have going back a couple years. I like to see 3 to 5. You don't have to have it today, but just percentage wise, where we were expenditures versus at this time would be appreciated.
Gotcha. The utilization rate. For fiscal year for fiscal year 2026 Q3 revenue, we see a slight uptick year over year of roughly $70,000. Our large fixed revenue sources have largely been received for the year. So those include assessment dues, annual registrations, and Title V. Those revenue sources account for roughly 56% of our budgeted revenue for the year. Penalty revenue and interest income continue to exceed expectations. Penalty revenue has surpassed its budgeted figure by 173%. This unexpected inflow of penalty revenue has helped offset our missing quarterly core revenue. Taking a look at expenditures, our payroll burn rate remains on target, but we will need to be closely monitoring that to ensure we don't overspend in that expenditure subcategory, because it'd be great if it was 75% or 76%, so it's right on that cusp. Expenditures in all non-payroll categories also remain within acceptable utilization rates. However, close monitoring of expenditure levels will be necessary as we incur large capital outlays related to the roof. So we haven't expensed that. The roofers are planned for re-roofing this month, so we'll be paying that out this year sometime.
But it's in the budget.
It's in the budget, correct? And that was the amendment that we had done.
Last month or the month before, we did a budget amendment.
Right. And then are we expecting payment on those core federal and state grants?
We are. So I think it was last month or this month, we finally had received a fully executed agreement with the state, which opened up our state and federal core funding for the biennium. And they're allowing us to retroactively submit reimbursement requests dating back to July, which I've done. So for the past 2 quarters, I'm expecting to fully receive I think it's $229,000 this fiscal year in core revenue. Looking forward to the final quarter of the year, we most likely will see a shift away from fee revenue to grants and other revenue. And that's because, we've largely received those assessment dues, registration revenue, and then the Title V revenue, which again makes up 56% of our budgeted revenue. Given our large capital expenditures for the year, I am expecting another year-end deficit. However, I'm hopeful that our new approved core funding of roughly $220,000 will help shrink that deficit. I don't know how much that deficit will be.
But we had budgeted a deficit, right?
Yes, we have a budgeted deficit. I'm expecting another deficit this year because of those large capital expenses. I just don't know. I can't tell you a number.
The sad part was we always budgeted deficit, but we didn't use them. We're using them. That's the difference.
But we're probably gonna exceed our revenue target too.
Yes,
Yep.
we will certainly exceed,
Yep.
yes.
Yep.
Yeah, even with the lack, with the big reduction in state core funding that we didn't budget for, we will, but because of additional penalty funds, I think, yeah, we'll exceed revenue projection.
I believe
Budgeted
it.
revenue.
Dan, can you scroll all the way to the bottom of the document? Keep going. Perfect. And can you zoom in on that that text box? A little more. Great, thank you. So as requested by the committee last month, I identified, this is what that list you're seeing here. I identified large non-reoccurring expenditures which have occurred during this fiscal year. These expenditures include the purchase of office chairs, which you're sitting in, ongoing database costs, the EV fence and charger, heat pumps, and costs related to the Mountain View monitoring shelter and the Chica Peak monitoring station move. When excluding these costs from our year-to-date expenditures, our net surplus increases to $244,000, which is an increase of approximately $97,000. So we're backing out kind of those non-recurring large purchases, and then you see an increase, obviously, to our net position to $240,000.
Just showing, and I think Randy, it was you who asked, just to separate out the one-time expenditures from the ongoing more operational. So that's what we're trying to do.
And so that is it for the Q3 financial report. Again, I will be bringing the fully reconciled Q3 statements to next month's finance committee meeting. And I'll just provide you an update because it's all just the revenue just went up.
It's just kind of putting your projection hat on. We're not in the range that we were for the budgeted deficit, but you're still thinking we're probably gonna be in the.
Yep. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the draft budget. Let's see.
Good call.
I have a face from radio.
So So as we get this pulled up, just wanted to mention, so again, the budget package has gotten pretty lengthy. So there's like 3 pages that constitute really the core part of the budget. And then there's summary descriptions, and then there's a lot of kind of supplemental information, supporting information. Those are things that you've asked for over the years, and we add things, but we don't necessarily take things away. And so would love it either now or maybe in the coming months, if you have thoughts on, well, we don't really need to include this, or this is helpful. So, and right now we're just kind of throwing everything at you. If there's stuff in here that we can trim back on or not include, we're open to that feedback.
So as you know, counties have huge, long, I simplified ours out years ago with status quo. Cost of living, what we call the things that are necessary. We have contracts where things are already approved by the board. We're already gonna be putting them into the cost, so they are automatic. And then we have A plus, which is what people are asking for on top of it. It just simplifies things out so much.
Okay.
Then we say no to almost all that. Then they tell us that, well, we really need this, and we say, you know what, you're right.
All right, so, we provided you with an updated draft budget as part of the finance committee document packet, and I'm just gonna be covering, just going over budget changes, highlighting key budget items that are included in the FY 27 budget, revisiting the budget timeline, and just opening up for input or questions. This is a list of all the changes to the budget since last committee meeting. There have not been any material changes from last month, but the changes did net an increase in the overall expenditures for the year.
Under the line, legal and professional services, is that because of what we were talking about earlier, or is that separate of?
Separate of.
So included in the legal and professional services, that increase is really professional, on a more professional services side.
But not because of the lawsuit and
Correct.
stuff like that, because
Yeah,
that would be taken care of if we decide to establish a reserve. You wouldn't have to build it in, but you have it already put up there.
yeah, we've already budgeted in based on how much we paid our legal counsel historically, excluding that, but it was excluding those one large cases. So the costs for legal counsel are included in the budgeted line item for legal and professional services. This increase here is related to more of the professional services. So the professional services that we've included in FY 27 include strategic planning, and
Well, yeah, so I think we included a total of $15,000 for either strategic planning or for a lobbyist. Again, I think that it's gonna be helpful to work with the lobbyist in the coming year to try to restore our state core funding. And then there's also some staff development. So I think there's a total of 15,000 in there for all 3 of those things, just to kind of see how the year unfolds and which of those are the kind of highest priority. And another area that has seen a stark increase in legal professional services is serving ABC Legal. Yeah, what's the name of the company? Well, it doesn't.
Legal services.
Yeah, so serving.
a processor.
Exactly.
Processor.
Yes. We often work with sheriff's departments in some counties, but that doesn't, some counties sheriffs don't do that. And so, but yeah, we've seen a big increase in those costs.
On the lobbyist, which I think is probably a good idea, would that be sharing that cost with other?
Yes,
jurisdictions?
yeah, so I'm in conversation with the other 7 locals, so yes, we would be sharing that, so that would be ORCAA's
Great.
contribution to that.
Are there any other entities that we could find common ground with to partner up with? I just think of associations, the counties and stuff like that. They're finally going around and doing that stuff too. It's one of those things I choke on, but at the same time, it makes a difference.
Right.
So I just choke. I just don't like it, the idea of, but it is what it is. It's necessary. So if you look at that, I know for us, we're looking at working with cities, the risk pool to do some of the stuff that stop us from our legal issues.
And
Right.
to add on to that, the reason I think it would be probably good to talk to the Washington Association of Counties is if we don't get this core grant, assessments go up.
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah,
so counties have a direct,
they do.
you know,
And also they have a lobbyist for the risk pool. Your risks go up as we have these things too.
Yeah, no, I've got conversations, I'm in conversation with the directors for the other 6 local agencies. I've asked, I think a number of them at least have money in their budgets for lobbyists. I've talked to a number of folks about this. And so then the idea is preparing materials and then again, that would share with board members because you know, you all have relationships with legislators in our legislative districts. And so I think it's gonna be a lot of different conversations happening as we head towards the 2027 legislative session.
It's not meant to be, it's driving me absolutely crazy.
So also, we made a downward adjustment in core revenue. This adjustment now aligns with expected revenue with our allotted grant funding by fiscal year. We also updated salaries and wages according to the approved SIP project position with a budget of $15,000 to be expensed in FY 27. There was a reduction of $5,000 in travel and training costs and an increase of $13,000 in legal and professional services. These changes net increase of $5,502 in our projected deficit.
From what we presented last month.
So now I hate to talk about increasing anything, but when you say reduction of travel and training. Travel, I have no problem with, but training can sometimes cost us money if we don't.
Yeah, so I'm not doing a blanket, I mean, so there were a few, I think this reduction came specifically because there's a professional association that a number of us are part of, the Air and Waste Management Association, the Pacific Northwest International Section, which is Washington, Oregon, Idaho, and Alaska. The annual meeting this year is in Anchorage, and it's very expensive to get to Anchorage. And so I told staff that no, given our budget constraints, we weren't going to be sending staff
So
to
just this year,
Anchorage.
that's why, that's good to know. That's a good, sorry, guys.
you don't have heartburn about it.
I don't have heartburn. Again, there are virtual options, and it's missing 1 year is not a
Sometimes you
big
take
deal.
it.
We do, I mean, typically we send 2, sometimes even 3 people to because it is a good conference. And yeah, I mean, I appreciate that. Training is really important. We've got, you know, we're a very technical agency. Keeping everybody trained and up to speed on latest is really important, but I don't see this as cutting into our core needs.
Thank you.
All right, so just going over some key budget items for FY 27. They include a 2.8% salary adjustment, continuation of ORCAA benefit coverage for staff, approval of the SIP project position, $50,000 for an additional fleet vehicle, $8,000 for ongoing support to OLIMAP, a $27,000 draw from our reserve database fund, and a $31,000 transfer from our general fund into our reserve building fund. I also encourage the finance committee to please review the budget summary document included in your budget packet, as it provides a more detailed list of budget proposals. Very detailed. So. Just as a reminder to the committee, May 8th is when we are required to post our budget for public comment. So we would really like to have a finalized budget by then. So please, if you have any concerns, questions, or input, to provide them to Jeff or me before the 8th, so we can incorporate those changes into the posted budget. And on May 13th, I will be presenting the finalized budget to the finance committee and board. And on June 10th, we'll hear any public comment and adopt the budget. So that's kind of the remainder of our timeline. And that's it.
Can you go back 2 slides?
Sure.
So I have some comments. I'm gonna try to make them as, you know, collaboratively possibly as I can. I just want to make the point that very similar to counties, almost all of our expenditures are personnel. We can't do any of our work without staff. We rely on our staff to do the work. It's extremely important, respect the staff. So any of the things that I say, hey, maybe we can save $1 here, are dwarfed by the number one on that list. I also recognize that they deserve that, and I'm not gonna speak against that, but that's the elephant in the room is. Anything where we're chipping away, you're saving $5,000 in travel, great, $5,000 is real money, dwarfed by number one on that list. So the things that counties have had to, in my experience, examine. Are things like in the summary of expenses in the packet, paid family medical leave. We're in an awkward, at the county level, we bargain with unions. And what we noticed is we were providing benefits over and above what we bargained for. I don't know why. And so those are the things where we said, okay, we're gonna stop providing those benefits because of budget crunch. We don't have that similar situation here, but that's just one of the things that I noted is we're paying both sides of those premiums. When I was a private employer, I didn't do that.
Right.
I don't know if that's something we want to consider as a board or not, but it costs our employees to do that. And I recognize that I don't want to just shove costs onto our employees, but it's real money. And so the same thing is true with L&I premiums. We're electing to pay the employee portion. I didn't do that as a private employer. My employees paid their portion because it's their portion. What's the age of the car, the additional fleet vehicle that we're replacing?
I wanna say 2016, 17, it's got like 150,000 miles on it though, and we cover a lot of miles on our, all
You
this.
do cover a lot of
And
miles.
so, but a lot, I think it's,
Which one are you
17
talking
or
about?
16, the blueberry and blackberry.
I think the BlackBerry is the one that has
Probably
has the most miles,
150,000
and so,
miles now.
and this.
And that's a calculation of maintenance cost versus acquisition costs. And we've
Yes.
done that kind of.
And also not wanting to get too far behind because we've got multiple vehicles that are roughly that same age.
And if you
And
delay
so
all
if
of
we
them,
delay,
then you're
then-
gonna have a huge.
Exactly, so, and frankly, I think, so 50,000, I think is a little bit high, we could likely get a vehicle for a bit less than that, but
I think you're in the
yeah,
ballpark.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that we had. Reasons for the
Yes.
fleet vehicle, I'm satisfied with those. But again, my comments will be. I think, are we at the point where we have to, stop paying the employee portion of.
Right.
Of these two programs, paid family medical leave and the LI.
Tyson and I have talked about, we want to do, I think, a comprehensive look at benefits. I think it's been a while. We did a salary survey a number of years ago and that was done. I think it's worth probably looking at it again. Some things have remained, were maybe generous 10, 12 years ago are no longer. And I
Sure.
think that ORCAA paying these things was added, Randy, you might remember, but I think the agency jumped in to pay these things a number of years ago during lean budget times in the past. But I think.
Instead of giving raises.
Instead of,
something like
yeah.
that.
That happened to happen before me, but the things that if anything. In those rooms, I always go more to the conservative side because I do know it does eventually cost more than we can handle. But I've never heard it brought forward this way. It has me thinking without a doubt. Personally, I don't know that now would be the time to do anything like that, but keeping that in mind, just like some of the stuff I've been asking for. I'm gonna be supportive of this budget when it happens.
Mhm.
The stuff I've been doing is to set us up because we're gonna have those conversations. It is getting tougher and it's just getting us ready and it's letting them know what I'm thinking and everything too, so I'm not hiding anything from anybody. And gives us a chance to have this education here with each other, just like you just did with me on that. When the time comes for raises and stuff like that, that needs to be considered. Because we've gone way above what the other counties would have paid. We really did. This is where we need to have that discussion. So maybe not for today, but I am definitely with you on that. Because we've already decided to do it. They're already counting on it. I wouldn't want to take anything they're counting on. Just maybe trade it off for something in the future. Okay. I'd like to what you think.
The other comment that I had was, it says continue contracting with ADP for payroll processing. Are they competitive? I don't know. When I was a business owner, I used ADP. When I did that analysis, they were not that competitive for me. And I had 15 employees, 25 employees, which is actually, I think, pretty similar to where we are. So
We made the change to ADP maybe 3 years ago because the county was, well, previously it was done through Thurston County and they were updating their payroll system and we're gonna like increase the cost to the agency by like an order of magnitude.
Yeah.
And so going with ADP actually saved the agency a lot of money.
Oh, interesting, okay. So maybe it is.
$50 a month.
Yeah,
Okay,
so it's fairly reasonable.
all right.
All right, Greg, anything?
No, I mean, I appreciate the conversation that's going on, and I think that these are all reasonable. I mean, so, yep, no, I'm supportive of the budget as presented, so I'm looking forward to the May 8th meeting.
Well, that's gonna wrap it up for my coverage of all the presentations and budget.
So, I think we would like a motion to take this forward to the full board to recommend.
Madam Chair, I move that we bring this forward to the full board for consideration as presented today.
Thanks, Randy. Any second?
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to move this to the full board for discussion and consideration. Is there any discussion? We've had quite a bit of discussion. Is there anything that anyone wants to suggest before we finalize this motion?
I will just say that I will bring my issue about the paying the employee portion of those two things to the full board. But other than that, I'm supportive of the budget.
As you should. Great time to start to have that.
Is there anything else that folks would like to see from staff before the May 8th kickoff for public comment? At this time, we can always add suggestions before May 8th, but just want to make sure we get all of our thoughts and questions out while we have everyone here.
Oh, sure. One other thing, I noted that, so you guys are involved in the Thurston County Investment Pool, which our county is different. We're in the LGIP for the state. The LGIP has been very strong and it's starting to soften. I'm assuming the same thing's true in the Thurston County Investment Pool. Are there any thoughts of having a more structured, like, what do they call that? You know, chain where you get into some more long-term investments rather than only being in the Thurston County Investment Pool?
Right,
Because I'm assuming it works like the LGIP. But I
yes,
don't know.
so the LGI or the TCIP, Thurston County Investment Pool, is invested across a broad range of investments.
Right.
Included in that is the LGIP
Oh,
or
interesting.
the local government investment pool.
Yep.
I looked into this, actually, like, one of the first things I did here was looking into that, and if I can recall, we are bound by RCW to be. Our treasurer needs to be the county, Thurston County. It can be a different county, but we've chosen Thurston County because this is where our main office is located. And within that Thurston County investment pool, we cannot go out and say, hey, county, purchase a CD for.
Okay. That's fine.
Unfortunately.
That's fine.
I wish we could.
But it's no different than the school district, everything else that put the money in through you. We have to have a fiduciary, and that is.
Yeah.
Again, before I ever came, that's how long they've been doing it.
That's fine then.
Yeah, no, it'd be great if we could, go invest in some bonds or some just CDs that are returning 4% instead of 3.5%.
Well, and I would say in recent history, that wouldn't have benefited us because the investment pool has been so strong. I'm sure the Thurston County treasurer is making those investment decisions, and I'm sure that they're good at it. And if so if we're in our lane, then that's fine.
It just shows how old I am again, because I remember we went through a time where the counties, just to have the money was costing us money. We went
Yes,
back
yes, and that's how it was. The investment pools were returning almost nothing.
Yeah.
That changed dramatically,
Yeah.
maybe 4 years ago or so.
And even the banks were charging us a lot more. We had to leave Bank of America because we couldn't afford them. Crazy times, things shift around.
Yeah.
Dang, I'm old.
All right. Well, any last comments or thoughts? Thank you for adding that part of the conversation. That's valuable for me since I'm not very familiar with the reason for using Thurston County Investment Pool as our agency to manage investments, which is interesting to me. And I didn't know that about the LGIP either, so that's pretty cool.
One more question, if you don't mind. Will you be in favor of this, or is there something you really think that we should change right now? I appreciate where you come from on the other. We could, discuss on whether to have that included in the budget. But I just want to make sure that if you have things that you're seeing that we should be talking about, we should change the budget, I want to make sure we empower you to.
I just want to hear from the full board. Again, I'm mostly comfortable. And again, the things that I'm pointing out about like the paying the employee portion, we would be able to save a whopping $25,000, $27,000. Like it's chump change at the end of the day. But to your point of rolling, the snowball rolling downhill, it's $25,000 every year, that compounds. And I just, again, to me, that's the prophylactic of, whatever little nibbles we can make that prevent us from then having, a layoff or not being able to do cost of living adjustments for our employees in the future, or having draconian increases in the assessments that counties struggle to, fund. I don't know. So I just, those are the things that I saw. I will just hear what the board
Those are great.
says.
Yeah.
So I think maybe this is rolling into the conversation about what should this committee report out during the chair report, because I think that's going to be important to engage the full board in looking at the board in the budget package before they get before the presentation. So, and I think, of course, they all have access to all the information that this committee does. Maybe encourage them to look at the slides at the continuing discussion, because I think that fund balance information provides some important context for the agency, and as they consider approving the budget as presented, that fund balance I think again is important context.
I agree.
And I guess that's why I was asked that question. If we're gonna do a readout from here, is there a report out that this is for consideration for the future, or you want it changed today? That's what I was basically trying to finish up.
I would probably be okay adopting the budget today without that. That's my red flag that I will raise.
And so, if I understand, so then perhaps as we head into preparing the fiscal year 2028 budget, or is it something?
I think that
Depends on what the rest of the board says to me. So I feel like my job is just to say, here's what I see. Our county has, that's something that we did. Because we noticed, and it's very different because we were bargaining. We recognized that we were providing, there was others that we recognized we were providing a benefit over and above what we bargained for. So for us, it was a much easier decision to say, hey, we're going outside of our lane. We bargained for that's what we should provide. It's very different for us. But those were some of the things when we went through kind of a cost cutting exercise that we identified.
now we'll be coming together and talking about wages. When we talk about wages and increases and stuff like that each year. When do you guys have that on your radar?
Oh, like a market assessment?
Market, or how we will look to do the increases, because we usually have those discussions more in depth. I'm sure, Mr. Chair, you remember our in-depth conversations on those.
I do indeed.
Well, yeah. So we did, so shortly after I came on board in February of 2022, so worked in later 2022, early 2023 with Compensation Connections. The board constituted a personnel committee to do a salary survey. That was the last time that it's been looked at in detail, and those adjustments were made, I think, as we headed into were incorporated as we looked at our fiscal year 2024 budget.
I think it's time that we set one up for this year to look at if anything that's going to go in future budgets.
Okay. Yep, so we can,
Yeah, and also the frequency for the salary surveys, that is stated in our policies, I believe, too.
I believe we'll take a look. I think it says every 4 to 5 years. I don't think it's a hard look, but no, actually Tyson and I were just talking about that yesterday, that it's probably about time. And I think as much for salaries, as much for benefits, because again, it's the full compensation package. And so but again, last time we came out, we were fairly competitive. There were, I think the inspectors were raised up some because that was the largest discrepancy. There were a few things, but
we still have had a discussion, and we still will have again when it comes up our sphere of comparison.
Yeah.
That makes a big difference. I understand where we're located, but we also represent
Yeah.
a whole big
Right.
realm of places, and
Yeah.
it's not so, in my opinion, it shouldn't be so simple as it was, because I disagreed with a lot of those numbers. I didn't think some of those things were truly comparables, but that was me, and I'd like to have the discussion before we go out and hire somebody. Last time we were having a discussion after they're hired, they bring us the results, and then we'd have the discussion. It was way too late to have that discussion, obviously.
And then, the ground truth of that is, are we fully staffed, right? We are, my understanding. So, I'm concerned about retention, obviously, but we're fully staffed. So it's just, right, there's the.
And also talking about kind of the overlapping benefits. So you'll see during the board meeting, we're making a policy change related to supplemental leave as it relates to paid family medical leave. We are not allowing supplemental leave. And part of the reason why is because we are paying the paid family medical leave premiums for staff. So there was some give and take there.
Another sort of personnel change we've made actually at the beginning of this fiscal year was moving probably 2/3 of staff from overtime eligible to overtime exempt. That's a savings. I mean, it's historically, the agency hasn't paid out a lot of overtime, but but that is something to.
But that also says that we pay them so much that they can be into that, because that's.
Well, that's not a. That's right.
Yeah.
But it's more, that's based on, there's a variety of different categories, and most staff qualify because of the technical. It's not, I mean, they are above, many are above the threshold, or I think most of them are above the threshold. Yes,
So there's a minimum threshold.
exactly, yes.
Yeah.
So, and when competing, when you guys keep mentioning the counties, I agree with you, there's differences, but our cost comparison should also be with the other air agencies. There's a technical specificity in there and training that needs to go that does not. I work for the county, Thurston and Pacific, and I work for the air agency and for tribes, all in the Rambo. There is a specific training and type of work that is different than the air agency. I'm not saying better, worse, above or below, but it is different. I've done both, and so we have lost people before at ORCAA going to other air agencies or private sector for the air agency consulting role, and because we were not competitive with that. And so I just that's an important thing for retention. When you mention that, the field is not normally people going from air agencies to counties. It's usually counties to air agencies and then to other air agencies or to consulting businesses, that these AOP businesses that we find $2 million, they will hire people away for that. So that is something to keep in mind.
The final point I'll make, just from a policy perspective, asking the employees to pay the L&I premium gives them a stake in creating a safe workplace.
All right. Well, with that, we do have a motion on the floor, and I wanted to leave that open for discussion in case there were any modifications needed to that motion, but the motion on the floor is to present this to the full board as is. Are there any suggestions, or I will call for the vote?
Sounds like that's what we.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, and that passes unanimously, 9:44 a.m. So we are at good of the order.
Can we talk a
Any
little bit
other-
about the process for the normal meeting, Emily? I really, since I'm sick and not there, Jeff, I think asked you if
Yes.
you'd be willing to chair, and I just wanted to talk about that process and
Thank
how.
you for not being willing to share.
Right. Yeah, not the souvenir I was hoping for my travels, but I guess I assume that I would call to order and then pass it over to you to chair in person. Does that sound reasonable?
Yep,
Okay.
that sounds good.
And then you'll conduct the election in my stead? Under the
Yep,
chair
I can do
report?
that.
Okay.
Yep.
Great. And then for the finance report, I assume we'll talk about the budget mostly and encourage people to look at it and I don't know. Mike, is Mike going to register his concerns at this one or,
Probably the next one.
okay, I mean, it's kind of too late for that, so I guess I
Okay,
just,
you can, I can register them this today, if that's fine.
Okay,
They're not like red flaming
Yeah.
concerns. They're just,
yeah,
They're good to know because we're gonna have that
Yes.
conversation in the future. I'd like it to, just what you did.
Okay.
That's what I do, so
yeah.
I throw little bombs
I'm
out there and
happy to do
everything.
Yeah, and I have, for my report, I don't have a ton, but I did highlight the things I wanted to report to the board. I wanted to bring up that looking forward, one of the things we're gonna need to consider very seriously is achieving full cost recovery, because that's come up a few times, and I think it's important to kind of keep in mind, because it gets people thinking of future conversations we might have to have or continue having. I also highlighted to raise the issue of, well, not necessarily an issue, but the fun idea of prioritizing core funding in our legislative agenda next year. So I'll raise that to the board as well as a reminder that that's something we can do to help. And then I will remind them, as you said, Greg, to please review the materials by May 8th. And I wanted to check on this, so I'm gonna specifically ask them to look at the presentation for looking back and looking forward that Tyson presented, and then the fund balance sheets for fiscal year 2027. Is there anything else that staff or board members think I should highlight for the full board to look at before May 8th?
I think my recommendation would be the full fiscal year 2027 packet.
Okay.
So you said fund balance, but I mean, I think that full packet, and I can make a point of reaching out to board members between now and early May, just to prompt any questions that folks might have.
Okay, and by packet, you mean the one that has the memos included? in-
Yes,
draft
Okay.
budget.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, the
Yeah.
39-page.
Okay.
and you might make a caveat on that, Emily, too, that it's a daunting budget package, but it's really, as Jeff said, a 3-page budget, and if they want to dig in more on policies we've already adopted, largely,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah, so it's fun, not daunting.
yes.
It's good for the policy wonks in the room. And I think probably most of our counties have significantly higher budgets, so this one was easy. This was a breeze for me. I appreciate all the work staff has put into this. It was very clear. The presentation was pretty much flawless, I think, so really good job to staff for putting this together.
Great.
All right. Any other thoughts on my report out for the full board? Okay. All right, any other items for good of the order? All right, well then we will go ahead and adjourn this finance committee meeting. It's 9:48 a.m. and I'll see you all here pretty soon.